3 does not give anti-corruption authority powers to treat the monies collected from the proceeds of crime as A in A. That money should be taken to a fund or to the consolidated fund so that the government can be able to use that fund, those monies, to implement different projects. So there is there is quite a number of budgetary underperformance as reported by this report. And we hope the first retreat and the second retreat organized by the president, some of these things are being addressed. Because as you know, it never happened in the previous administration. Instead, the president then used to lecture everybody, including his ministers, members of parliament, as well as principal secretaries. So they worked under fear, and probably that may be one of the reasons of why we are getting today a very bad report of the year 2020-2021. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Roko. The Honorable Umundi Karoli.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I also want to add my voice in support of the report, but with a few caveats and some suggestions or recommendations, not having had the advantage of going through the entire document. So some of the things I may say may actually be in the report, but nonetheless, let me say them. I want to begin by talking about this issue of interest being charged on pending payments due from government contracts. If you understand the way government contracts are negotiated and priced, you'll realize that the government is actually paying double interest on its contracts. Because when people bid for government tenders, they already price the prospect of delayed payment, which is regarded as one of the commercial risks in the contract. So actually, the fact that there will be delayed payment is already priced and is already in the contract. And then when the delay occurs, there's further recalculation and further additional funding to pay for those delayed payments. So we are actually ending up paying double. And I think this needs to be addressed, and there's been attempts to address it, but not very effectively. Because if you look at the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act as well as the PFM Act, there's a requirement that you cannot contract if you do not have a budget, if you do not have the source of funds, if they are not clearly marked and ring-fenced. Yet, we still end up not paying, simply because we do not follow our budgets. And the solution to this is ineffective implementation of that particular requirement in the PFM Act as well as the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act, by holding those officers responsible. Those who have signed contracts or those who are supposed to make the payments and do not do so. But most importantly, we need to find out how to ring fence, and I think the committee should do some additional work, how to ring fence debts that are due and payable on government contracts from arbitrary budget cuts. I think we need to hear from the committee what their recommendations are on that particular area. And also, the committee should come up with some very innovative ways of managing government debt. In the private sector, we have something called factoring, where debts are sold at discounted rates instead of keeping them in your books. I think the committee should investigate how some element of factoring can be introduced to government debt, where those debts would be then sold out to those who are willing to pay them at a discounted rate, and then supported by issue of maybe long-term government paper in terms of treasury bills to support whoever's been able to take up those debts. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I would like to point out that there is a misconception, or maybe I didn't get it correctly, that the Office of the Attorney General is responsible for commercial terms on government contracts. I did spend the first 9 years of my life there. The responsibility for commercial terms in government contracts lie with the Treasury. So I think the institution that we need to deal with to get reasonable commercial terms is Treasury. And how should we do that? If you look at our Constitution under Chapter 12, We have some framework for public finance. We have some principles. But we don't have a legislative framework